Ottawa. So that's where we are at right now here in Toronto. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mazi. Thank you. I'm just checking to see if I have someone who's planning for the North America. I don't see any names. Is there anyone who can share with us plans for North America? I do know that there are some plans that are being made to also have a demonstration. Is there anyone who's there to share? I don't see anyone, but as our program goes, or when we get towards the end, I'll check to see if there's anyone who can share with us plans for North America. I do know that there are plans to have a demonstration at the US Embassy in protest of these few individuals who are looting our national wealth. Yes.
Yeah, ndi Muroji, but ndachida kuti ndachitarisa my brother Siampondo, but handisi kumona. But I think I know kuti pakaita meeting ndakazopinda a little bit very late because I was committed bus. So maybe tichavamirira, but I know kuti vangachitarisa nezve-tentative date rekuti paitwe something like that. North America, they were looking into 18, but 18, people kind of thought equal to 18. My office anokwasange akavarwa embassy because it's a holiday date. The tentative was looked at 2021, if I'm not mistaken. So I would have loved to my brother Siampondo to present that. But I think we'll just wait, he will come in and put that forward. Thank you.
Guys, I'm sorry. Do we know who Uyakanzi Jennifer is? Do we know who that is?
Jennifer S., can you unmute and let the people know you?
If they don't, I suggest you remove them from the space.
Hello.
I think.
Okay, so as we proceed with our program today, I also have a person who's going to be assisting my co-moderator, Mr. Mujanja, if you could unmute and let people hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tafazo Munjanja. I'll be assisting Dr. Muirimi through the moderation process. The purpose of this meeting, we found it very important that we engage amongst ourselves in terms of the gold looting that we have witnessed through the Al Jazeera documentary. It's an opportunity for us to express how we feel about what happened, to talk about it in our own spaces, and also probably try to find the best way forward as citizens, as a country. And so we have panelists who are joining us here today. And so we have panelists joining us today. So just wanted to thank the panelists who have joined us. We expect that this will be an engaging discussion where the panelists get to, give us their 2 cents, but also engage those who are present in this meeting. So, so that said, Dr. Fujimi, thank you for the introduction. So we can move forward. I think I can see that we already have 2 or 3 of our panelists present in the meeting. and so there's no need to wait. We can move forward. To those who are making that noise, I think it's appropriate that
Guys, you are actually under attack. You need to take these people off
Being
the
hurt,
space.
guys.
We have
Called manual.
Abarakash lava bafuna.
Thank you, Doc.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we need to check.
Can you change your space so that people go in the waiting room first and then you let them in? You need to change your settings.
I think the way I entered, I was in a waiting room. So is that not the case?
Let's try and do that.
Yeah, you changed his name now. He's changed to Leon. He's changed.
I think, Doc, can you make other people, oh, he's already left. Mr. Mjanja, if you can make other people hosts so that they can help you to get rid of these people. And anyone who doesn't have a name, we just quickly remove them. And anyone who looks suspicious.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have hosting capability right now.
Yes, I'm trying to get back my. I think something happened here because I'm no longer host. So I'm going to check.
Okay, let me. I don't know what happened. Let me make you host.
I have question. Why is it called Gold Mafia?
Movies here, food.
What did you say, the stupid nigga? You're black.
Okay, Mr. Mjanja, I've made you co-host.
Okay, I can see that. So Aganzi Michael Uyo Wamwirimi, don't admit that person. Aganzi Michael, ignore that one.
We have another one. I think
the host can mute. The host can mute all of us. Then you select whom to give the mic.
Okay, I've muted everyone now.
Azvishandi,
you didn't, bitch.
unofanira kutovabvisa because nyange makamuta everyone vanhu vanongobvisa mute. Uyu akanzi Mwendas uyu.
Mwendas.
Nigga. Ndiri Mwendas woku Canada. I'm not the one. I don't know what's going on.
Nigga.
You can actually no, you can actually.
Who is host? May you make me a co-host? I'll help you to mute these people. May you make me co-host?
Don't mute them. Vabise. Musama mute vabise. Otherwise, monobata busy press a mute. I think Vasara was sure, Mamanji.
Let me deal with them.
Okay, yeah, I think you are now co-host.
I'm high-tech professional. If you could make me group leader, I can help you mute all of them.
We are be saying, Diani. Muna taura mama nje movie safe food. Unless kana mchimsia.
I think we can continue. Everyone else, just make sure if you are not speaking, you are muted. I will do the background.
Okay, thank you. You see, these are the exact things that we were worried about when I was mentioning the house rules, where we wanted to know everyone, and I would want to advise everyone to be on the lookout of these people. If you see any name that is suspicious, let us know, and then we remove that person immediately. So right now, I'm going to give time to Chief so that you can say your opening remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Muirimi. Thank you, everyone, for joining. This is the struggle that we are in, ladies and gentlemen. You can see that this is a very intentional attack. It's not random. It's well-planned. It's strategic. And you can tell that obviously there are some people that do not want us to discuss this very topical issue, an issue that is affecting us, not only us because we are in the diaspora running away from our country, but also affecting the people that are in Zimbabwe. Look at the levels of poverty that are in Zimbabwe, the poor infrastructure, the roads, the poor schools, the hospitals, the state that they are in. And you have this, and then obviously you have to be angry. And talking about angry and being angry, and people that are going to make us more angry, our four speakers tonight or today, we welcome you to this program. Thank you so much for agreeing to come at a short notice. I don't know how much angry you're going to make us, but the idea really is to share information and make everyone come to the same page. If we are going to get angry, we all get angry as Zimbabweans. We don't want to see only Chief Roche or only Dr. Muvirimi being angry about this whole scandals that we are seeing in Zimbabwe, because indeed, the gold that is being stolen from Zimbabwe, it affects all of us. And what I do not understand is why some people that are on the other side are pretending not to be affected, or as if they will never be affected by this situation. Because the money that is being stolen is supposed to be helping all Zimbabweans, ZANU-PF, Triple C, Monzora's people. It's across the board. So really we expect even members of parliament from ZANU-PF, from other political parties, to join us as we fight this corruption, as we fight for our resources that are being taken away from us. Half the money that is being taken away from Zimbabwe is enriching other nationals. It's enriching other countries, and that needs to stop. So I'll not talk much because I'll get angry, and then I'll keep talking because we have people that are supposed to be talking here. So let me again welcome everyone who is here. You're special, you're here because we want you to be here so that you can share your ideas. We have solutions at the end of the day. And also let me welcome our Zimbabweans that are joining us on social media. I know we are connected on our Facebook pages, Change Radio Facebook page, ZimI Facebook page, Change Radio YouTube and the radio itself. You're welcome. Please do contribute wherever you are. We'll be checking your messages and reading them out here. Thank you so much, and back to you, Dr. Mbirim and Mr. Mjani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tokora. Thank you very much for those opening remarks. So we'll just get straight into our order of business. We do have Mr. Advocate Kennedy Masie. Advocate Kennedy Masie is a leader in our province here. He's also a human rights activist who has worked with the Mara family in terms of continuing the fight for justice for Itai Dzamara. Mr. Kennedy Masie, thank you so much. The floor is yours. Let's get going with this discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, leader. I wasn't able to log into my computer, which has got video on it. Apparently because of the mess that was happening just a few seconds ago. But if you would allow me to just present here, and people just see my picture without the video. I hope that is fine.
Apologies, Advocate. Vamvirim, vana Mr. Bako na vamwe vari kufona on my phone, they are failing to get through the meeting.
Can they put their names so that we know who is who?
Bako. He has his name on.
So what we're doing is that they're going into a waiting room, and so we see the names. We don't see his name there in the waiting room. So he's
failing to get through to the waiting room.
So I'm not sure what the issue there is now.
Okay, let me tell him to keep trying.
Yes, thank you. So what we're doing is that so we see the name. Advocate Masie, you can go ahead.
Okay, great. Yes, so leaders, this is where we are, where we see resources being plundered by ZANU-PF politicians and other entities that are doing so. And today, basically, my presentation is to look into. Okay, there's some feedback coming. Someone has not muted their mic. Okay, can I go ahead? Okay. So yes. So basically that's what we are seeing. And today my presentation is basically to look at the legal avenues available, and what can citizens do given such a situation. For me, basically, I wouldn't want to look at this issue like in a simplistic with a simplistic approach. Because I think one of the things that we need to understand is to probably find out why such things happen or are happening, and why we have people like Obed Angel being given the roles that they have of being called a diplomat at large. To me, all those things are not like coincidental that Obed Angel is given that role as an ambassador. Then now we have this expose where we see gold being siphoned out of the country using various means, diplomatic or otherwise. To me, that is no coincidence at all. And that is those are some of the questions that probably for us to understand probably the legal routes that are available to us might want to probably explore. So my presentation basically is starting from the premise as to what the role of the ambassador is, because I'm just going to zoom into Hubert Angel because he's the one at the forefront of these machinations and the theft that is going on. And there are some other people that have been mentioned there. You know, some British citizens and some Zimbabwean white citizens too, and some people working in you know, various government offices and exits. You know, the airport. We know that recently there's this some gentlemen who work at the airport and some who work at you know, some other government entities that were been involved in these you know, money laundering schemes. But I'm trying to just zoom in to Hubert Angel, because Hubert Angel's role basically intertwines or connects with you know, the government's role in all this. Because if Hubert Angel was acting, as he said in his you know, interviews and so forth, with the blessing of the president, then when you talk about money laundering, we're not just talking about an individual or probably, you know, groups of people. We're talking about the whole you know, infrastructure of the government being involved in the money laundering schemes you know, in the SADC region and also international. So it's very good to probably try to understand that. And this is my take. I know all of us probably heard what Hubert Angel said, but to me, what really struck me was his confidence in saying that he has the power to sign treaties or sign agreements on behalf of the government. And he has the power to actually engage on behalf of the government in any negotiations that will bind the Zimbabwean government and so forth. Well, that statement is partially true. And his role as the ambassador basically entails, you know, entering into negotiations with third parties or even other entities. But of course, whether he can sign a treaty on behalf of Zimbabwe, that is, you know, total falsehood. And the constitution does not really allow that. The only person who can sign a treaty and bind Zimbabwe to any international instrument is the president of the country. But when it comes to negotiating any other probably contracts with the government or whatever the case may be, he might be right. He, as an ambassador, can do that. But now, why do we have someone like Hubert Angel being confident that he can do that? And him actually getting into negotiations with mafia, you know, mafia, gold mafia people and so forth, and him actually going to the extent of you know, promising huge sums of gold and money. Why would we have Hubert Angel do that? So here's the thing. When it comes to issues of diplomacy, because Hubert Angel, to me, he could have been, if not, you know, if Mnangagwa was very much interested in his probably negotiating skills, mastery in courts, he could have probably given him another role, which is not ambassador. But to me, here's the thing. The role of ambassador has got immunities. And when you come to issues of immunity, it means that if Hubert Angel is acting on behalf of the government of Zimbabwe and is negotiating probably with gold mafias, as you are saying, he has some diplomatic immunity that he has. And when you are talking about diplomatic immunity, I'm just talking and looking at, you know, at the foresight, like what can happen to Hubert Angel besides, you know, dealing with our systems in Zimbabwe. You know, any other country that probably wants to prosecute Hubert Angel for probably this transaction can probably fail to do so because he's protected by the diplomatic immunity. So when you talk about diplomatic immunity, we now look at whether Hubert Angel was acting on his own behalf when he was transacting this, or he was acting on behalf of the government when he was transacting this. So in terms of international law, he has a cover there, and the cover is being given by the government of Zimbabwe. So that's where some of the nuances now come in. And now, if you look back into the discussion or into the argument that I'm saying, like, why was Hubert Angel given that diplomacy, diplomatic role? To me, it is a well-orchestrated plan from probably way back that, Shama, you do this, you do the gold, you stuff on the gold, and when it bursts, you've got the protection. We got you. We've got the protection of the Zimbabwean government. But now here's the thing. If all these things are being laid to bear, if investigations show that this, of which now everything is showing that Zimbabwe as a government was involved in money laundering schemes, and if Zimbabwe was involved in money laundering schemes, then there are some effects to that. The banking system as a whole is basically going to crumble, and the government itself as an entity as a whole, it has to answer to some of those money laundering allegations that they face. And first with this, it comes to a situation where the government has to choose between Hubert Angel or dealing with this issue. Because now, as it stands, the only way that Hubert Angel can be prosecuted is if Zimbabwe, what do they call it? If Zimbabwe somehow withdraws its, decides to withdraw its official immunity against offered to Hubert Angel because of his transactional activities. And when it comes to international probably prosecution, Zimbabwe at this time, the government itself has the power to say, no, he was not acting within the course and scope of his employment as a diplomat. And as such, his activities in these gold deals are nowhere near what he was assigned to do as a diplomat. But we know that since this expose came out, not a word from the government came out, besides Mangunja talking about issues of sanctions and so forth. But not a word came out from the government. And we have seen this over time and time again, that when such issues of corruption come out, the current government's stance is basically to protect its own. And we've seen a lot of people being threatened, lawyers being threatened, journalists being threatened for talking about this. And we can always see, we can just see where we are going with probably the investigations or the redress of this issue. So, given that situation.
Yes, thank you, Advocate. I'm going to hold you right there. We have, so what we want to do is, would like to circle back with you in terms of the interaction between the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the different ambassadors that represent Zimbabwe in all the other countries, as well as where Hubert Angel's position was standing in light of all of these other ministries. So if you can park for now, but I want to come back to you in terms of those questions. Right now, we're going to let Mr. Peter Mutasa go through. Mr. Peter Mutasa is the previous president of the Zimbabwe Trade Union Organization. He's now the president of the Crisis Coalition for Zimbabwe. And so what we want to do, we would like to hear from Mr. Peter Mutasa. He's calling in from Zimbabwe. So we are conscious of the time difference that they have. That's why we kind of wanted to chime in. Mr. Peter Mutasa, please come through. Thank you.
Right. So thank you, comrades, and thank you, compatriots. And I'm really happy that you have organized this platform. Firstly, because you are in the diaspora, but you are still concerned, very much concerned about what is happening home. I think that is a high level of patriotism and also civic action and civic responsibility. So I'm very much happy. But secondly, because you are taking the first step. Many people in the country are hearing about the documentary. Some have watched it many times, but we seem not to be taking the first step of ensuring that we all have this same understanding, a common understanding, which is something, if I fail to say anything meaningful, which is something that I would want to pose for all of us, that in our own small groups, in our own areas, in our own spaces, what is now needed to be done is to make sure that the documentary is known by everyone, but not just the documentary, but also the meaning, what it means to different sectors. And if we are in our churches, we need to discuss about the meaning of the documentary. If you are in a family setups, we need to discuss about the documentary. We are discussing with workers, some workers who think that this doesn't affect them, this doesn't matter. They are saying, let's focus on bread and butter. So we are taking a responsibility here to tell them that when you see bread on the OK shelf, it does not come from OK. It is manufactured somewhere. It starts in the fields with people plowing wheat. It is political. It is linked to land tenure. It is linked to labor rights. So we need to explain these things in a layman's language so that our families, our neighbors, our relatives, our workmates, everyone has to understand the import of this. So this is why I'm very excited that you have taken the first step. But from here in Zimbabwe, we still have a challenge in that the documentary has been viewed many times by many people, but we have not yet found a common position on what to do next. But if you look at it, the Gold Mafia is not leaving anyone. It's affecting everyone. And I feel for you guys who are in the diaspora, because you are carrying the burden of the state. You are taking care of all of us here. If I'm ill, I phone my sister, my brother who is in diaspora, and you use your money to get us to hospitals. When I need X-ray, I then call again. When I need to buy, and I'm at a pharmacy, I need to buy drugs, I then call you again. So you are carrying all the burden of issues that should be done by the government. It is the government's responsibility to use our taxes, our natural resources, the royalties that they get from natural resources to build hospitals and to equip hospitals and to pay health services workers sufficient so that they are motivated. But you are now a mini government. The diaspora is now a mini government in terms of public service provision in Zimbabwe. You are also taking care of our, even some groceries. I've seen a proliferation of online stores. They are not targeted at us. They know that here we do not have the money. They are targeted at you. You cannot leave your fathers, your mothers, your uncles starving. And you are also taking care of the social security. That has got a fully-fledged Ministry of Public Service, Labor and Social Welfare. But the social welfare part and public service is now being done by our brothers and sisters who are in the diaspora. You are also taking care of everything to do with education of our kids and our brothers here and sisters here. So it is a very important matter for those who are in diaspora. And I want to point out that when ZANU-PF and its Warakash and its spokespersons try to demean or to belittle you in the diaspora, you should be standing on a firm ground that you have got legitimates to talk about this issue and to demand accountability, because you are funding government. By its own accounts, minus the gold that is being smuggled, the government has acknowledged that the diaspora remittances are now third in terms of our receipts from outside the country. So in terms of foreign currency receipts, your 1 billion is almost 25% of our budget. And that should give the diaspora a firm ground to speak on these issues. But what I want to point out is that we were all aware that gold was going out. We were all aware that it's not just gold, it's also chrome. Workers that drive trucks in this country, the haulage truck drivers, they are telling us harrowing stories that they are loading chrome, and they are told that you are pulling 20 tons, and this will be 200 trucks in a row. When they get to Beira, they discover that so over 15 ton per truck times 200 almost on a daily basis is being stolen of chrome. Now they are looting lithium. Lithium is going out like nobody's business. Black granite is going out. So we we have this rage, but we should always know that what we have been told by this documentary, from this documentary, is just munit, it's just a tip, should make the country stop and we ask each other difficult questions. Unfortunately, we have not yet arrived at that point, but let's continue to discuss these issues and see how we can come up with a common position. I think the main challenges that we are facing here at home is one, cooptation. The regime has co-opted many people in many organizations, whether churches, whether trade unions, students movement. People are given mafufu echingwa to sell the struggle, to sell their brothers and sisters. When you are four in Harare, you can't even know whether you should talk about important secretive things, because amongst the four, two may be for the regime. But we have got a way out.
I would like to stop there. I'd like to stop there.
Thank you. Thank you,
I'd
comrade.
like to ask you two questions. What are the labor conditions in terms of this gold mining, Makorokoza? You know, you were representing the labor union for many years. And so sometimes citizens may not understand. They may come and say, ndokurarama kwatiri kuita. So what would you say are the labor conditions, and what would be advantageous if these operations were formalized? You know, it's an operating gold mine where there are procedures and everything is legal and going through the system. How can you convince someone arukorokoza arikuanararamo kuti murku dambu rwamari panapa murkuvharwa? What's your take on that? Number two, so the action items. You in the labor union, you called for several demonstrations that were successful in Zimbabwe. In terms of us here in the diaspora, how would you kind of give us a guideline in terms of what would you suggest we can do in order to express our angst over what we have seen in these documentaries? Thank you. Just 2 minutes, the response on those two questions.
Every comrade. The first thing is that every worker is to know that they are not going to get decent salaries for as long as the nation's wealth is shared by a few, and for as long as the nation's foreign currency is externalized. So why are workers in the low wages? And they are earning low wages because the money that is subject on these natural resources, the royalties, are the amounts that should be paying nurses, doctors, teachers. So every worker has to have an interest over this issue. Then if you look at all the other workers, even those who are not in public service, we are crying because our local currency, the RTGS, is losing value. It is losing value because despite the fact that we are extracting our natural resources and selling them out, we are not getting the foreign currency because of the gold mafia. So because you are not getting the foreign currency back home, it means that our local currency is going to continuously lose value, and we are going to earn nothing. So for the working class, I think this is an important matter. This explains why. The second point on the informal Makorokoza, I think it's not employment, that is desperation. The level of amount of people who are dying in those dagions and dying for nothing and dying for a few, to tell us that this is not the way we should be structuring our economy. Let's look at those places which had mining done in a normal way. You can point out that there is a school there, roads there is infrastructure, there are houses that were built. If you look in this country, in Kwekwe, in Mazoe, in Mautare, everywhere there's artisanal mining, there's land degradation, but there's nothing to show for it. So Zimbabweans must be well aware that we are just destroying and taking and extracting our resources for nothing. If we allow this to go for 10 or 20 more years, dzimba dzichadonha, makorokoza ari pasi, zvikoro zviri kudonha zvatotanga, mahospital achadonha, vanhu vachingoparara tichishayiwa anything that we can do. And finally, what can the diaspora do? Even if we are aware and we are conscious that we need to do something locally here, you should also understand that we do not have resources. So for example, for Labour already has a Labour caucus in politics, a network of Labour activists who are moving around conscientizing people. But at times they can't even hold a press conference because they can't even hire a room for $100 or $50. So I think there's need to build a coordination for us who are here and who are active, and groups that are active, and for the diaspora, those who can have $1, who can have $2 to spare, so that they fund some of these actions that we need to do.
No, thank you. Thank you.
You should be clear about is we are not going to get anything from ZANU-PF if we don't organize ourselves more.
Is it me or
We can hardly hear him. Maybe you can go out and come back again.
Yeah, Mr. Mtasa, your network is in and out. Your network is cutting in and out.
To tell us,
can you mute Mr. Mtasa? Dr. Mwirimi, can you mute Mr. Mtasa?
We need to organize and mobilize, and everyone has got a responsibility. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mtasa. Thank you. Can you hear me?
My apologies. It's bad here.
No, that's okay. We've heard you. Just to continue on our panelist, we have Chenai Mutambasere. She's also one of our leaders in the CCC. She's a political activist. She is always active in terms of advocating for human rights for Zimbabweans. So, Chenai, thank you so much for joining. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Hi, Tafadzwa. Thank you guys for having me. It's 6 minutes to 10 over here, so I'm going to try and make my submissions quite quick and to the point. So hopefully I can get to bed soon. So I think what I can focus on, aside from wanting, I'll just take my camera on for a little bit just to say hello, and then if that works. Okay, no, it's not working. So what I wanted to say, hi, what I wanted to really focus on the things that I see the propaganda mafia on Twitter, etc., the Varakashis of this world, the things that they are trying to put forward as a defense. And then I also want to talk a little bit about the mining infrastructure and really where it leaves us as a country. So in terms of what I have picked up from the Barakashis, the propagandists on Twitter, what the ZANU-PF messaging basically is saying, you'll hear them say that, of course, we have to find another way to address the sanctions issue. We have to find another way to sell our gold so that the country can survive, because we're being affected by OFAC, especially they tend to make a lot of reference to OFAC. And I just wanted really to equip us with just a few points, which I'm sure with you guys being obviously in America, you know, I'm possibly singing to the choir here. But that case of we're trying to circumvent sanctions with the banner of, because OFAC is is putting us on sanctions, etc. That is actual hogwash. There is no such thing as Zimbabwe has got issues in selling their gold because of sanctions. The sanctions that we have that are being managed through OFAC, the American sanctions, as you know, they are very much targeted sanctions. And when somebody says, oh, we have to do this because of what is happening with OFAC, I would ask you to challenge them back to actually explain what they mean, because these sanctions are specific to some individuals. I think about 100 something individuals. They've now updated to take off the people that are no longer in government following the 2017 coup and the 2018 elections. And these are directed, targeted sanctions. Now, how do they impact organizations in Zimbabwe? So in Zimbabwe, one of our problems that we have is we are very poor at recording information about businesses, information about business conglomerates. So when companies like CBZ or even Barclays have been penalized in America because they were involved with people who had something to do with sanctions. When America then tried to unpack their systems to understand, okay, so Chennai started a business, but can we say for sure that Chennai is not got any business affiliations with someone who is on the sanctions list? Zimbabwe does not have this information. Our registry information is very poor. The information that even banks collect about their clients is very poor. We are underwhelming in terms of due diligence. So sometimes people will throw a company at you and say, well, I can't remember the example that Varakashi used, that they say, oh, they were stopped from undertaking a small business transaction. It's probably because that particular organization, one of the shareholders, one of their clients was either on the sanctions list or affiliated with somebody on the sanctions list. And all this can go away if our Reserve Bank, if our Ministry of Finance does put in place an infrastructure that encourages proper know your customer information, especially within our financial institutions, because then that gives other traders or other trade business outside of Zimbabwe the surety that I can rely on a database somewhere to really search to say, okay, Chennai in Zimbabwe, who are her associates in terms of companies? Here in the UK, we have Companies House, which has actually been quite instrumental in us even finding where there was a deal that I think Eddie Cross and somebody else, when they were given a contract to build, I think it was the Bay Bridge highway. And we quickly could find this particular company, and we found who the chief exec was, who the shareholders was, and we were able to actually let people know that information because it's easily and readily available on Companies House. I believe in America you have similar databases, but in Zimbabwe we don't. So this is how we are implicated in a secondary nature in terms of sanctions. But this by no means stops businesses that are businesses of integrity, businesses that are not associated with people that have been convicted of people that have been convicted of human rights violations. So so when you hear somebody say, oh, it's because of OFAC, ask them to explain, which organizations. If Fidelity Printers and Zimbabwe diamond mines are on the sanctions list, then we should not be selling our gold to them. We should be looking at institutions of integrity that are not at all related or affiliated with people that are on the sanctions list, with people that have been accused of human rights violations. Then the other one, which also the people have made reference to, which is the Zidera. Zidera is to do with more like multilateral situations, especially to do with borrowing. It's nothing to do with business. It's to do with multilateral situations between Zimbabwe, America, and organizations where America is considered an important stakeholder. And this is limiting us in terms of our borrowing. But when you look at our debt today, we are bad debtors anyway. We can't afford to pay what we've borrowed. I think an organization calculated that it's going to take us nearly 98 years to pay off what we owe today. So that is where Zidera is coming from. Again, it's simply asking us to respect human rights, to have free and fair elections, and so on and so forth. And so this mantra by the propagandists that, oh, Zimbabwe has to do this because of sanctions, what they actually mean to say, if we were to read between the lines, is Zimbabwe has to do this because the people that want to make money are on sanctions. Therefore, they are now using individuals who are willing to smuggle the gold on their behalf, who are willing to employ clandestine methods of gold trade on their behalf. That is what that means. When you now look at our mining infrastructure is designed to run like the mafia. We have a mining act that has been in place since 1961. And this it's designed to promote monopoly. You know, you can imagine it was done by the colonialists in 1961. They did not want anybody else. They did not want locals. They wanted to protect the wealth for themselves. And this is what we have had in place. Imagine 1961. That's the mining law that we're using. Yeah, Rhodes, Radea Smith, amen. So what that does, number one, it gives absolute power to the president of Zimbabwe. He can sign and give mining concessionary rights, which last for 25 years. And he is the one who can do that. He has absolute power to do that. And so when you see Hubert Angel and when you hear people like Henrietta Schweier saying what they're saying, ultimately, the man at the top, the highest office when it comes to mining and mining deals is the president of Zimbabwe. Beyond that, we then have claim rights. So, you know, for some of us that haven't done any mining, if you want to do mining in Zimbabwe, you have to go and apply for a right to explore if the land does actually have any minerals. And I think you're given that right, that claim to explore for, I think it's $2,000 you have to pay. And once you get that, you then apply to PEG. I think you're allowed up to 10 hectares, which you renew, I think every after 10 years or something like that. So what happens is people can become claim holders, but they don't necessarily want to invest in mining. They might not even have the mining equipment. So what they do, they undertake these bidding wars with the artisanal miners. And they say to the artisanal miners, I have this right now to mine on this on this piece of land. Whoever is willing to mine and sell me the gold at the best price is the one I will allow to undertake the panning. And so what we end up with is we have these mining claims that are now being done by artisanal miners who don't really have, they don't have the right equipment. The methods that they employ are very primitive and dangerous to themselves and to the environment, especially. And once they've done that, by this time,
if I can stop you right there, I do have some questions in terms of so yes, they're doing all these things. So what is the loss to citizens? Because are these miners declaring are they registering their businesses first of all with Zimra? Are they declaring the business revenue and expenses? And are they paying tax? Because the citizen wants to know, Kuti, what Angel and ZANU-PF are doing. How is it affecting us from a revenue perspective? You did talk about, Kuti, the type of mining. What is the environmental impact, in your opinion, about what's going on there? Is there any land reclamation programs that are being undertaken by the Ministry of Mines? And then my last question has to do with the documentary was stating that Zimbabwe is used as a destination to clean dirty money. So in that regard, what are the legal ramifications there? What does it mean in terms of our relationships within the international community? So I'll give you 2 minutes just to respond, and then we'll move on. Dr. Muirimi will take over, and then he will make the next introduction. Thank you.
Okay, that's a lot of questions to be answered in 2 minutes. Perhaps I'll start from the very last one. In terms of where do we stand as a country? Okay, So there's an article that was written and I think submitted to Nehanda by one of our champions, Henry Jaji. I really recommend that you read that article. So here is what it is. When you have been caught with your pants down, like they've done with the Al Jazeera documentary, what the world wants to see first is, what are you going to do about it? That's the most important thing, is what is Zimbabwe doing about it? How is it Zimbabwe going to address the whole anti-money laundering in terms of the types of people that are holding businesses in Zimbabwe, like Hubert Angel, like the Rutland guy, the Macmillan guy, all those people. What is Zimbabwe's financial services authority, whether it's through the financial crime unit, whether it's through the Ministry of Finance, how hard how seriously are they taking this, right? Because not only does this address that current situation, but it also shows that the future for Zimbabwe, is Zimbabwe going to be really, how are we going to be perceived by the rest of the world? And this is very important, because there are some organizations that actually are interested at an international level on countering anti-money laundering and terrorism. And what they will do is, if they see that Zimbabwe is not doing anything about it, this will allow them to put Zimbabwe on that list. And now we are talking about real proper sanctions. Now, I remember in the early 2000s, when I had a close relative come to the UK and they tried to open a bank account. They were a proper, resident, or had all their documents here. And the moment they produced their Zimbabwe passport, there was no bank that was willing to open an account for them here in the UK. Why? Because at that time, this was the time of the Jambanja, the farm invasions, etc., etc. So Zimbabwe was being grey listed at that time in terms of human rights violations. Now, money laundering and is attached to counterterrorism, because they're saying, if you do, and child sex trafficking and things like this, if you don't care where the money is coming from, you could actually, whether intentionally or unintentionally, be supporting the underworld of terrorism, child sex trafficking, etc., etc. And when that happens, trust me, no one wants to know about you, because that association is so dire from a political, from a reputational risk perspective. So the fact that we are not, the Minister of Finance hasn't even breathed a single word, that is so abnormal. He hasn't even said anything. So that means that our systems now are vulnerable to money laundering. They're vulnerable to really accepting the process of crime and within the gold trade. And that is going to make things very difficult for us as a nation that is wanting to move forward. So that is the first disappointment. The first thing that we should all know and understand is the silence from the government of Zimbabwe is going to be damning on all of us. When it comes to revenue, yes, our current system promotes smuggling, it promotes illicit flows, because can you imagine that more than 65% of our gold is actually coming from those artisanal miners. And artisanal miners are an informal trade. They're not registered anyway. So in Zimbabwe, you actually find formal companies that are formed, they're real serious businesses. Instead of them going to mine their own mine and registering that with Zimbra, etc., paying their royalties, they actually prefer to go and buy from the artisanal miners, which is why we have a situation where artisanal miners produce the majority of the gold in the country, because they see that they can make maximum profit. They buy it cheap from them and they go and they sell it, and they don't have to register. They don't have to pay any royalties to anybody. And this is the same in the diamond industry. When it comes to the environment, I only need to say what happened in Kwekwe not so long ago, when a school classroom block just collapsed. Because what they do, the methods are very primitive. So sometimes they're putting dynamite in order to open up the ground and see if there's even any mine. Sometimes they'll do that and they don't even really reach where the gold is. So they don't, it's completely, you know, they've destroyed the environment for no real reason. Not that there's ever a good reason for doing such a thing, but this is where we are. So we are really on a ticking time bomb. I've heard some really scary stories of what is happening in Manika land, again, because of artisanal mining, where people, you know, you get shifting structures, because once you've disturbed the, what is it called, the underground layers, any geologist amongst us can probably explain it better, then you are vulnerable to shifting, and all these things will happen to buildings, and people live in those areas, you know, and we're at risk of flooding because of the artisanal mining methods. So it's a double whammy for Zimbabweans. The gold is being smuggled, the money is being smuggled and deposited in Dubai or Mauritius. The only thing we have left to tell is all this environment degradation that, you know, that is left behind by the primitive methods being used in mining, and nothing more. You know, you can imagine for that school, they now don't have classrooms. They don't have the money to rebuild those classrooms, because any of the gold that was taken from that area is in Dubai right now. You know, it's lining someone else's pockets. We have received no royalties from it as well.
Take some more questions. Thank you for that. If you were angry when you got into this meeting, and you got angrier when we had Varagashi, after the presentations we've had so far, I think the anger is increasing. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite our next speaker, Makumborero Aruzivishe. He's one of our youth leaders, and he's a human rights activist. Marco, you can have the floor.
Good evening, everyone, and good afternoon to others. I hope am I audible?
Yes, you are.
And thank you very much. My name is Makumbaro Arsuishe. I'm a Zimbabwean, just like most of us here in this meeting, and I'm also angry at the further exposes of corruption, especially with regards to the Gold Mafia documentary by Al Jazeera. But it is important that at this time, others, those who have spoken before me, have said everything to such an extent that I am left with nothing rather more to say. And I have to acknowledge Advocate Kenneth Masie. He's a patriot of note. I respect him.
We have to. This is a big day.
Who is this one?
Ladies and gentlemen, can we mute ourselves? Thank you. Go ahead, Marco.
Yeah, so I was appreciating those who came before me, Advocate Masie. I appreciate him, very powerful submissions. Comrade, my beloved comrade, Peter Mtasa, I salute him. They articulated very well, and then also to Chinai Mtambasere, well articulated. They have exhausted almost everything, but then I just want to weigh into this discussion with my perspectives on the impacts of the Gold Mafia, the impacts of corruption in as far as human rights, democracy, development are concerned. Because what we see presented in the Al Jazeera, it's a solid case of non-state actors, non-state international players, how they undermine democracy in Africa, how they undermine the rule of law in Africa, how they undermine human rights in Africa. I'm approaching this with the perspective of how now we have our Independence Day, over 4 decades of independence on the 18th of April in a few weeks' time. But then what's more important is how we have, in the words of Father Zimbabwe, Joshua Ngomo, that he said it is said that I've realized this lately, that a country can become independent without its people being free. That is the case with Zimbabwe, at the mercy of the Gold Mafia, at the mercy of these international criminals, at the mercy of the ZANU-PF, because we cannot separate these international criminals, this Gold Mafia, these smugglers with ZANU-PF. They are serving at the interest of ZANU-PF. They are, as we saw, serving at the pleasure of Emerson Mnangagwa, the president of ZANU-PF, the chief secretary of ZANU-PF. And it is Emerson Mnangagwa who appointed Hubert Angel as a diplomatic, that diplomatic role, so that all the mafia activities, can be implemented. And this makes ZANU-PF, like I've always said, a mafia that operates far above international mafia standards. They are not accountable to anyone. They don't answer to anyone. And they are the one in charge, in control of the police, the military, the intelligence, and also in terms of our justice system as a whole. And we've seen how Emerson Mnangagwa has actively sabotaged national development. How Emerson Mnangagwa has actively sabotaged national security, our airports and everything, just for this Gold Mafia. And the danger now, as I, am placing my argument and my perspective into this issue, is that democracy in Zimbabwe is now seriously sabotaged by these non-state actors in such a way that they now make decisions which impact everyone, all the millions of us. But if you check these people, they are not on the ballot, we don't vote for them, but they make decisions that affect the millions of us. And there is little to nothing that we can really do to them in as far as the current ZANU-PF government is in place, because they serve at the mercy of this government. They serve to preserve this government, and they go to an extreme level of preserving this government. I can give you an example of Mengistu Mariam. He is a kind of a mafia of sorts in this current government, and he's also behind. If you check his employment in Zimbabwe, it's around, he's an advisor, a military advisor to the army and also to the president. And he stays, if you check where he stays, in Kanu there, his home is guarded by soldiers and everything. And he's one of the people who are buying the one. It's recorded, not so publicly, but it's a public secret, that he's one of the people who just advised that, people should just be shot on August. He's an non-state actor. He doesn't appear on the ballot paper. He's not on the ballot box. We'd never see his posters during elections when we elect our leaders. And when leaders are in power, he makes decisions which affect us, the voters. This is how the diplomatic mafia, how the Gold Mafia is like. We also saw that Indian guy, the brother Paul, how in Kenya he was chased away by Kenyans after also sabotaging the economy. He's now in Zimbabwe, where he's fully protected, just like Mengistu Mariam, fully protected, running away from genocide crimes committed in Ethiopia. There, we go also further to the issues of now money laundering, which Nemtamba Sere spoke to a large extent. These people now, they launder a lot of money. And when they launder this money, it's not just used for, of course, we saw on Instagram, their concubines, their children, their relatives, they flound so much cash, their proxies, the likes of Huguenot Fayo, we see them flaunting cash, the likes of Pokelonaro, we see flaunting, riches and wealth, a good number of them. But beyond that, the most worry that we should have as Zimbabweans is that these monies, that money from money laundering, they are also used to sponsor human rights abuses. They're also used to sponsor abductions in Zimbabwe. We have had a serious case, especially between 2018 and now, where in 2019, we saw, for the first time ever, rather than the usual police and military we knew to be used to, in order to, for law enforcement purposes, we saw the surgeons or, the arrival onto the platform of outfits like the Threat Squad. We saw other private and non-state actors moving in very expensive vehicles with guns, firing bullets everywhere to quell, like in 2019, those 2 weeks of shutdown. Comrade Peter Mtasa is here. He was one of the conveners. He called for that action. I'm sure he can relate to what I'm saying. We saw people being abducted in the ghettos. We saw leaders being targeted. We saw people being tortured. Women were raped. Professionals like doctors who were treating victims of such violence were targeted. Lawyers who were representing them were also targeted. So now we going further. We saw even the Imbala case where Tawanda Mcheiwa was also targeted. This is a non-state actor. I'm now speaking to how these illicit funds, this debt man is used to undermine human rights abuses. These monies are now used by this mafia, this Gold Mafia, to sponsor, human rights abuses against voices of change, against citizens who stand up in demand for a better Zimbabwe, who stand up in demanding for reforms, who stand up demanding democracy. This Gold Mafia uses this man that is being laundered. It's now also being used to channel, to sponsor human rights abuses, to shut citizens' voices down. And this is now a critical issue which we should make noise about, that these people is no longer just stealing, it's no longer just money laundering, but then they're also committing crimes against humanity. They're sponsoring crimes against humanity using these dirty monies. They're sponsoring crimes against humanity. And there is evidence, like evidence with regards to Impala Rental. It's non-state actor, but it gets money. It's a company which is just used as a laundromat, like we've seen most businesses are being used. Most of so-called successful businessmen, pastors, their churches, like Hubert Angel, they're just laundromats. Businesses like Ugnoj Fios are just laundromats. Businesses like Pokelunares shoe shop, which sells expensive shoes, which are never bought by anyone anyway, but the shop is running. It's a laundromat. It is the same in the same manner how Imbala Karenda was also, and might also even be a laundromat, which readily provided its resources and vehicles to sponsor actions like we saw in the case of Tawanda and Cheiwa. So this is a case where we need to up the game, upscale the game, because there's one thing that I've realized with regards to the Zimbabwean question. There are many issues now. I have seen that in Brussels when I went to the EU Parliament late last year. I have also realized that the same last year in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands, when I had meetings with them, and also at Westminster, having discussions with various people, even with some ministers here in the UK. One thing I'm seeing is, as Zimbabweans, there has been a disconnect between us and the international community in as far as advocacy is concerned. We tend to, on social media, the general populace, to think and believe that everyone knows about our story. But our story has now been new. It's a new story since 2017. There's a new narrative which has not yet been packaged properly for the international world, international community to understand and realize. There is a new mafia in town. There's a new dictator in town. And the disadvantage now we have, and which is directly the advantage that Mnangagwa has, is Mnangagwa is a tyranny who is feared at home. But unlike Mugabe, he is not known at an international level. If you ask any random world leader who Emerson Mnangagwa is, they don't know. But if you ask them who Robert Mugabe is, they know him, despite that his death is no longer there. And such that my understanding with interactions that with the passing on of Robert Mugabe, most people believe that Zimbabwe is okay. They thought that Mugabe was the only problem in Zimbabwe. But they don't know that he had his enforcers. His enforcers are now the ones in charge, and they're more brutal. They are now worse than the Smith regime. They are now worse than Robert Mugabe. And they are worse than everything would have imagined. They are a war unto themselves. I hope maybe, I see you maybe want to say something.
No, I was going to say if you could round up and maybe make a comment on what the youth can do in order to protect their future and the future of other youth from this plundering of our resources that we are getting from this rogue regime.
All right. Now, given this, I think what I was presenting was a blank slate on where the youth, we now need to act like we are just starting or rather I said the second Chumuring. We have no dividends, we have lost everything. And we are approaching elections. These are now the practical realities which are there. Far away from social media content creation, there is the reality that we are approaching elections, and there's the wider consensus. We are a constitutional democracy, and it's the pathway that we have chosen. So young people need to go register to vote, because defending the vote, it begins by registering to vote. There's no one way or two ways about that, because one way or another, all revolutions, whether militant or military, whether vibrant or passive, they end in the ballot box. All revolutions, they end in the ballot box. So young people, we need to go register to vote. Why? Because we are victims of this gold mafia. We can speak in as far as issues to do with the industry in the whole rest of the world. It's in the fourth industrial revolution, but in Zimbabwe, we are barely into the first industrial revolution. We don't have industries. We import even toothpicks from China. We don't even have, our hospitals don't have basic paracetamol. We are dying from 13th century diseases like malaria and cholera. And for your own information, are you aware that more Zimbabweans have died from malaria than from COVID-19, which was a world pandemic? In Zimbabwe, more citizens died from malaria than from COVID-19. And it is very telling. We have had millions of us who have been exiled as political or economic exiles because of ZANU-PF. So we need to register to vote. We have had the scourge of drugs in Zimbabwe. Most of the people don't see this scourge, because once someone is really under the influence of drugs and affected by drugs, especially crystal meth and other dominant drugs, which are now there in Zimbabwe, they are thrown into jails. Jails are overcrowded with young people who are high on drugs. They are hopeless. They don't know what to do with their lives. They went to school. They thought that education are the keys to opportunities, keys to life. But after graduating and everything, they found that there's no door. ZANU-PF has taken the door. They are now resorting to drugs. So we need to register to vote, and it's the first line of defense. We need to vote, and more importantly, we need to act, because I always say that action does not always bring change, but there's no change that comes without action. So we need to act. We need to participate, like in lobbying internationally, like the diaspora community. We are very blessed that there is some certain level of tolerance within where we are located, that we can go protest, we can go do action, we can do these activities. And let's do that. And more importantly, I feel like this young generation lacks education, lacks awareness, lacks insight to what to do in as far as consciousness about current situation is concerned. So activities like this one, they are very key, and I want to emphasize, like this meeting we're having, it's very key. What we have to realize is, back then during the liberation struggle, night vigils labeled as pungwes were held, where people during the night would be singing, but above all, it was not about singing, it was indoctrination. It was about speaking critical issues and topics like the ones we're discussing here, were the ones which were being discussed under the trees, were the ones being discussed in mountains, were the ones being discussed in valleys, were the ones being discussed midnight. So we need to do this. It's an opportunity that we have been given by technology, by the internet age. We really need to do this more frequently, even if there are to be 5 people. Yes, it must be a culture, a norm. People must know that we are doing these things to educate, to enlighten each other. We need to do this, and if it means recording such sessions, then even turn them into audios for WhatsApp distribution. If it means we need to put short video clips for redistribution over the rest of the week, where we have every Sunday we have such a pungwe, such an activity. It's key, because I'm telling you, I know people really want change, but they are not enlightened.
I have to cut you off in the interest of time. Thank you to our speakers. I think we've had some important information here, which has been echoed about by our speakers, where we now understand that we may be exporting the gold, but 50 or more than 50% of the gold is coming from artisanal miners who are also destroying the environment, which means that we are probably not getting anything. It basically means that we're going to be spending more money than what we are getting from that gold when we try to reclaim the land that has been destroyed. So we've had a lot of things here. I just want to round back to Advocate Masia. I'll give you 2 minutes to round off because we kind of cut you off when you were presenting. And as you present, there were also some questions that were thrown in the chat there. Like some people were asking, can Hubert Angel be prosecuted as a British citizen citizenship? So just a few minutes over to you, Advocate Masia.
And Rigo.
Oh yeah, yes.
What do you say?
Okay. Yeah. So yes. I'm not sure whether I'm audible here. Can someone hear me? Oh yes. Okay. Thanks. Yes. So basically, I wouldn't know about British laws on how they work, but as I was trying to explain, is that Hubert Angel, if he was deemed to be acting within the course and scope of his employment as a diplomat, then basically he is protected under international law in that regards. But when it comes to the issue of whether, because I think the whole issue hinges on the attitude of the government here. Because if the government's stance is to say that, yes, we are basically money laundering and we're using Hubert Angel as our agent, then that becomes a whole dynamic issue that needs to be interrogated at an international level, where other countries such as South Africa, SADC, and the African Union has to really get involved and see how best they can deal with this issue on a country-to-country basis, because this issue not only affects Zimbabwe as just a country, but it affects the whole region, because there are money laundering laws that Zimbabwe is a signatory to, which are domestic, which are regional, sub-regional, and international. So on that regards, it has to be held accountable. But when it comes to Hubert Angel, I believe Hubert Angel can be prosecuted in Zimbabwe, because what he did, to me, basically is a violation of certain sections of the criminal code, because it pretty much is tantamount to what the criminal code says: abuse of public office. If he was not mandated to do what he did, then he is acting alone, and he's abusing his office as an ambassador, and therefore he can be prosecuted in Zimbabwe under our laws. But whether that will happen, we know is everyone's guess. But that is the situation that I can pretty much analyze and deduce. But every lawyer's got their own opinion. But I believe Hubert Angel can definitely be prosecuted in our courts in Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Advocate Masia. So at this point, I would like to open this up to every participant here. I see there was one hand that was up from that hand is no longer there. If there are any people here who have any questions, you could raise your hands and we could you can ask some questions to our presenters, or if you want to make a comment, you can make a comment.
Vamuviri ndandichikumbira ku director kuna Marco, and it is a pleasure to have him on board. having had a good time in North America, to demonstrate for his release, it is very encouraging to have him on our platform when he was submitting. And also just want to thank Brother Peter Mtasa, Chennai Mutambasere, and of course our own Wamasie. But I wanted to go back to Marco. He raised something extremely important that I just wanted also to add on that and trigger all of us to look into this. I know Marco is a very young man. He didn't attend Mapungwe, but he managed to get some education around that. Why maybe the struggle was successful, having had some opportunity to attend such teachings at Mapungwe as a young man. I wanted to ask Marco what he thinks as a young person who has seen it all, we have gone through the hardships, what it is that can be done by the young people today, whether in the diaspora mainly, and also back home. Now they are flooded in the drug abuses, and they are the people who are expected the most to come forward and liberate us. So where are we going to go if we seriously like this? What is he thinking he can share and also mobilize the youth to get us liberated? Thank you very much.
I'm going to take one more question before I allow Marco to answer the questions. Finial, can you go ahead? And ask?
Yeah, my question is, I have a few things. One thing is, what are we going to do new when we get in power? Because I see the selection of the cabinet, there is no vetting at all. Even Wikinel can be appointed minister anytime. So we need the measures which can thwart criminals from accessing power. And also my other question is, what are we doing to engage South Africa and South African opposition? Because we have the gold leaf guy who is also the launderer, which is involved with the mafia based in South Africa and using South African banks. So also crime was committed in South Africa too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Over to you, Marco. Can you answer some questions? Like the first question you got, and if you could respond to Mr. Piniel, and then we can also extend it to the other panelists.
All right, yeah, thank you. With regards to young people, I can tell you fully well that young people are at the majority right now, but young people have the minimal participation in our politics. Young people have never seen a Zimbabwe that works, and young people don't really understand what it means to have a proper functional country. I want to tell you very basics. Like most of you have cards, bank cards, credit cards, debit cards. You can, and the older generation back in Zimbabwe, they have pensions. But we now have a Zimbabwe where someone who has turned 43 years, he has never been employed and doesn't have a bank account, doesn't have pension. And then closest to a bank card, to a bank account they have is EcoCash or One Wallet. They don't know how it means to go and buy on credit, to finishers or anything. So with young people, I would rather put the burden more on the older generation, on the need to educate, to rewire. We need to education on how things can be better, how it has been better, how they can be better. We need motivation. Because I want to be honest with you, with regards to the scourge of now drug abuses, it's dominant. The issue of even things like if you go to areas like Epworth, areas like Mbare, areas like Harare South, you will find that young people are now even into sex work for survival. It's lack of opportunities. And it's I think would need another whole Zoom engagement to speak about this. But with young people now, what's needed is those of us who are enlightened, we must never tire to try to do everything to educate them. Be it even texting, be it even calling, be it even tweeting, be it even on Facebook, be it everywhere. Let's try to just let them know that things can be better. Zimbabwe was not supposed to be like this. It was never like this. It's more to do with education. It's more to do with enlightenment. It's what we need to do. Then the question about the diaspora, South Africa and others, the issue we must understand now, especially to do with candidates, is as citizens, we have the power at the end of the day. And the power we have, we sometimes unknowingly surrender it. And how do we surrender it? It's in just expecting some people to do things for us. I want to be very candid with you. Right now, we're entering into elections, but we don't have even, the citizens have said to now own this project and be in charge. But there have not been a group of citizens who have even come around to come up with something, maybe even like the Citizens Manifesto on what you want, or even the Citizens Leadership Pledge on what kind of leaders do we want. Wednesday is there. I understand Triple C and the progressive alternative. It's beginning its candidate selection process. But not even a single citizen has come up with a suggestion to have a citizens leadership pledge, whereby someone, before they even are to be considered for selection into parliament or council, they have signed a pledge that I won't take $40,000. They have to sign a pledge that I won't take stands. They have signed a pledge that I will not take the cars. There's a certain style that we need. So we might blame and everything, but we must also see that we are outsourcing our power, because in any elections, in any politics, especially in Zimbabwe, citizens, be they millions in the diaspora, they have the resource power, and also in terms of power, the influential power on social media. We are the ones with the 5Gs. We set the dominant narratives. We move from there, we go to even citizens in Zimbabwe, even in the diaspora, those who can go and vote. We have the power to, the votes. We are the ones with the votes. And we really need to exercise our power, to demand those, citizens manifesto, citizen pledges, and everything. It's something that we need to do, to be proactive, so that we set the standards for what we want. So yeah, I hope we have more time to discuss about these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you very much. So guys, let's chime in. Please raise your hands if you have any contributions. The floor is now open. We want this to be interactive because we all have an opinion. We all have we all have something to say. So as Marco said, sometimes we have to own the struggle. So owning it is stipulating our expectations, our frustrations. So please come in and unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and then come through. Thank you.
So we have leader Tcharwa. You can go ahead, and then after you, we can have Leonard come in.
And I can also come in after Leonard. I can't put my hand up. I don't know, maybe because I'm co-host.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Tcharwa.
Thank you, SG, and thank you all to our panelists to give us such an informed, information that we really needed. My question is actually directed to Advocate Masiye. Looking at the way our systems, our judicial systems, are compromised or captured, from the law enforcement, that is the police and the courts themselves. Is there any way that from the people in the diaspora, is there any way or channels that we can use in order to push for investigations? Because if we look at South Africa already, they are already, starting investigations to all those banks that are involved. Something that I don't think is ever going to come from our country. Are there any legal channels that citizens in the diaspora can use in order to push for investigations in these two documents that already have been released by Al Jazeera? Thank you.
Okay, can I? Okay. Oh yeah, thank you, Komatich. As we all know, in Zimbabwe, it's a challenge when it comes to prosecuting such serious cases where we think everything is obvious. But for me, here's the thing. I think this issue, as we are discussing it right now, it's got nothing to do with politics. It's got everything to do with the Zimbabwean. Every Zimbabwean here is affected, whether you're ZANU-PF and whether you're within government or out of government. This is a Zimbabwean issue. Our country is being hemorrhaged by a few individuals. So there is need for a good strategy here. Because here, the key witness here is Hubert Angel. And if Hubert Angel is held accountable by the Zimbabwean government itself, there can be options where we can avoid the issue of the diplomatic immunity that he might try to hide with. I think one speaker here actually asked whether something could be done in South Africa. That is a very good way of probably dealing around it, because now what happened here is a crime that transcends borders. And if our judiciary is unreliable, as we have already seen it before, these issues can be prosecuted in jurisdictions where this crime was felt, for example, in South Africa. So I think at the moment, there are avenues outside Zimbabwe that can be explored, but all these avenues will always depend on the government of Zimbabwe's attitude towards Hubert Angel as an individual, Hubert Angel and his role as a so-called diplomat who was acting, in furtherance of money laundering. So whatever comes out of this has to be something that is determined, that would determine which direction can be taken, which is effective. Of which, if I was me advising the government, I would probably say, please deal with Hubert Angel and probably fire him from government and deassociate yourself with this issue, so that these issues can be prosecuted accordingly.
Thank you, Advocate. So in the interest of time, I think I'll take Leonard as the last one, and then we will have our panelists come in to make their final comments. Leonard, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to everyone. I would like to address basically two things. My other questions have been answered by the previous speaker. The first one is to do with corruption. Yes, we are currently having the Gold Mafia, but let us not forget that corruption has been rampant in Zimbabwe. Even if you check, soon after independence, there was the Willowgate scandal. From there, if you check, we go to GMB, where Kangai looted dry the GMB. Then from there, we go to, it was Noxim. There was a big scandal there. Even if you remember very well, the manager, one of the two managers, they committed suicide as a result of that corruption. Now we are talking about the Gold Mafia. So the issue now is these things are always the case in Zimbabwe. Yes, even the courts, someone was talking about South Africa. Yes, in South Africa, they take action. But in Zimbabwe, it seems like the courts are captured. Even if you report the cases, no action is taken. So it's just a waste of time to report these cases or to gain the service of the legal fraternity. So what I think as a citizen is to encourage the youngsters, those ones who turned 18, to go vote. Even the first one to register and vote, to vote in their numbers. That's the only thing. So that when the Triple C wins, it wins resoundingly. I know rigging is always there, but if more people register to vote, I'm sure, like what happened in Zambia, we'll be able to overwhelm the rigging processes. Because now someone was talking about the issue of the international community. Yes, we can engage the service of the international community. You can make it very public, but at the end of the day, the international community will not do anything tangible to our case to help us achieve our to have tangible goals. 2008, I would say from 2000, there were gross human rights abuses in Zimbabwe. You go to 2008, many people were killed. There was the short sleeve and all those things, sanctions and all those things, but nothing's changed. We talk about electoral reforms, there's no electoral reform or like on the table. So nothing will change, nothing tangible will come. So my issue now is let's help those ones who are home to register to vote in their numbers and know where exactly we to vote and to guard our vote. Thank you so. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Chief, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. The speakers can answer these questions in their closing remarks. To Advocate Masie, we have this airport manager, Chidodo. He is in camera confessing that he was, helping criminals take the bags and everything through the airport scanners. He is confessing. Why is he not in jail? And why is he still working? Why hasn't he been suspended? And then to our comrade Mutasa, you are a veteran trade unionist. You have been in the trenches for the longest time. I'm sure you'll be best to advise the opposition. There we go again. We have heard criticism from a number of prominent people saying the opposition is not doing enough to take advantage of the Al Jazeera documentary. What can we do? What can the opposition do to take more leverage, more advantage of what is happening? And then what can we also do to get people, organizations like ZAC? Because ZAC, it's supposed to be fighting corruption, and now it's quiet. The corrupt activities are there. They are quiet. What can you do as civic society? You are a chairperson of one of the biggest civic organizations in Zimbabwe. What are you doing to make sure that some of you guys, some of your fellow activists in the civic society world are doing something to push what the citizens want? And you also, if you can also talk about what churches, Zimbabwe churches organizations, they are quiet. They haven't commented. What can you do to put pressure on them so that they speak up? And then the last question is to Chennai. Chennai, I want you to make us more angry. You are an economist. In terms of opportunity costs, the billions of dollars that are being smuggled out and the gold that is being smuggled out, what could it do to our gross domestic product? What can it mean to an ordinary Zimbabwean in Zimbabwe and even those outside Zimbabwe? So you can just do this as you round up as per Dr. Mirimi's instructions. Thank you.
Thank you. We can start with Chennai.
Thank you. So I would like to answer a couple of questions in terms of what we can do before I make you angry, like Chief said I should do. In terms of what we can do, we must remember that Hubert Angel is actually a British citizen. So that changes jurisdiction, or it introduces a new jurisdiction through which something can be done. When you look at money laundering accusations, this is an international crime. It's not a crime that starts and ends just in Zimbabwe. And with him being a British citizen, I believe there's recourse. I stand corrected. I know we've got Advocate Masia on the call as well. but I think there are opportunities to be exploited there. My understanding as well is in terms of him being a diplomat, but because he is a citizen and lives and resides in the UK and a resident in the UK, that apparently the immunity does not apply in his country of residence. And so there is again, you know, there are possibilities that I encourage citizens to explore in terms of what we can do, not necessarily as CCC, but as citizens, because this is actually a common cause. It affects everybody, whether you are ZANU-PF or you are neutral or you are Triple C or whoever you are. We are all in this mess together. So I encourage us as citizens to look at what can be done and what, you know, what opportunities there are from that perspective. And then the other, because you know, you look at other countries like the DRC and other places, a lot of things have been done across the world because it was the citizens who actually decided to act and do something about it. In Thailand, in Uganda, I believe there were some things that were put forward to the ICC, etc., etc. So there are different opportunities that I think we should exploit. In terms of with the upcoming elections, like Marco said, the majority of people in Zimbabweans are young people. So when we are speaking to people at home and really conscientizing them and motioning them to action, if we just focus on just the young people, the 18 to 35, we will do well because they are the majority in Zimbabwe. You know, after them is women. So if we can just focus on that constituency alone, we will win Zimbabwe for change. So that's my other point. In terms of the impact on the economy, I mean, you don't need to look very far. Zimbabwe at the moment, 50% of Zimbabweans are living in extreme poverty. So not just poverty, extreme poverty. Extreme poverty means per day you cannot afford the basics to survive in that day. And that's nearly half the population. And this is where we are. This is what happens. You know, you go to a hospital like Parinyatwa, you can't find even private hospitals, because I always say to people that poverty is different to being poor. If you say someone is poor, that's them, that is poor. Poverty affects everybody. It affects you regardless of your social class. So when even private hospitals cannot afford or cannot find drugs like morphine or paracetamol and things like that, that is going to come knocking on everybody's door. You know, so, and things will get worse if we start being impacted from an international trade perspective, whereby we are now appearing on the list of countries that are associated with money laundering and possible acts of supporting terrorism and child sex trafficking. That is going to make things very, very difficult for Zimbabweans, for a country that imports, you know, we are an import-based country. So if we come into a place where we are now being affected in terms of our international trade, then things are going to get a lot worse. It has become critical for Triple C to win this election for every Zimbabwean, whether you're a ZANU-PF Zimbabwean or a Triple C. We absolutely need change, because the trajectory in which we are traveling is going to be extremely dangerous for us as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me see if Mr. Mtasa is still here. Mr. Mtasa, are you still here? You can make some comments, your final remarks. I do not see him. Okay, Mr. Ruzivishe, can you make your final remarks?
Yeah, my final remarks with regards to this, I think they are guided more by a question which was asked earlier on about, or maybe it's a remark which was just raised about what the opposition should do. You know, I always have people who blame the opposition of not doing anything to fight corruption, who try to project themselves as the Zimbabwean messiahs in terms of fighting corruption. But we see from start to end so far, we are seeing that in this Gold Mafia documentary, Honorable Tindabit is the only politician in Zimbabwe who is fighting and speaking on behalf of the people. He is there, and we blame Triple C for not doing enough to fight corruption. But we see also that most of the people speaking out, instead of going for the Zimbabwe Republic Police, which has the constitutional duty and legal mandate to do that, they're not going after them. They're not going after the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, which has gobbled over 50 million since its inception, but has not yet made even any significant conviction. They are not going for that. They are going for Triple C. They are going for Chamisa. We go next to Special Anti-Corruption Unit, SACU, which is in the President's office. People are not going for that. They are going for Triple C. It's wrong. But Triple C is many people. If we were to qualitatively check people who have contributed to this documentary, they are Triple C. Let's go to the Financial Intelligence Unit, which is part of the system. People are not going for it. They are going for Triple C. The people, the politicians like Mnangagwa, who are named, people are not saying ZANU-PF must go. They are not calling for Mnangagwa's resignation or Mnangagwa's head. They are going for Triple C. So you find that blaming Triple C, it's rather unfair. And for me, I know most people disagree with me, but I will call it malicious. And whether how popular or unpopular people say it, so I always call them out on social media. That look, we need to be rational. We need to be fair. And yeah, it's good. People have to say those things and stuff. And sometimes it has made me realize that when commenting on political issues, some comment just to create content, political content, social media content on social media for the likes and the retweets. It's easy to just come and wake up and just criticize, say, Triple C is not doing enough. I'm doing more than anything else. I'm a God-given, thing to fighting corruption in Zimbabwe. Triple C should be doing this. But yet we see that Triple C has been doing that. The opposition in Zimbabwe has been on the forefront of fighting corruption. It's Triple C ministers and Triple C MPs who have been in parliament, who have been in cabinet, as in the case of the government of national unity, were at the forefront of fighting these issues. It's citizens aligned to the main opposition who have been doing campaigns like Stop the Bleeding campaign with regards to minerals, diamonds in Chad. So we have known this fight. Tai Dzamara was pro the main opposition. He was abducted. He was fighting. One of his biggest fights was against corruption. He was a journalist who all know him. Advocate Kenneth Masie represented Tai Dzamara actually. And Tai Dzamara, one of his most demos, were fighting against 15 billion, the biggest money that has happened in Zimbabwe, biggest corruption case that has happened in Zimbabwe. But it's easy to just blame Triple C. So I think as citizens, we need to understand and be resolute and to know that at the end of the day, we must keep our eyes focused on the ball. People will come with all suggestions and everything, but we must keep our eyes focused on the ball. Eyes focused on the ball right now. The ball is about removing ZANU-PF. There are elections. Let's do everything we can to make sure. I think it would be better if we were to make noise around issues to do with, making sure that agents there or anything or everything. Because fighting corruption, as we have seen, means removing ZANU-PF. Fighting the Gold Mafia, as we have seen, it can only be fought by removing ZANU-PF, because the Gold Mafia, as it is, as long as ZANU-PF is in power, they cannot be arrested. They can go walk like a straw in the park. They said it through our airports. The Gold Mafia can do whatever they want. We've seen at Globe and Phoenix School in Kwekwe collapsing under illegal alluvial mining, drilling beneath a school. A school collapsed. Children were injured. This is the Gold Mafia. They are trying to meet the demands of the Gold Mafia, in terms of the gold output. People are suffering. We see violence, the machete gangs, Mashurugu, they are there. It's the Gold Mafia that is benefiting from that, from all that chaos. And we see even Wingiti is singing against corruption, he's attacked. It's the Gold Mafia. We also know that Wingiti's last gig in Kwekwe, he was chased by the Gold Mafia. Those machete wielding Mashurugis, they chased him. It's the Gold Mafia. All the problems we have in Zimbabwe is this mafia. So instead of really going after the victims. Let's go after the criminals. And let's not waste time saying, the opposition should have done this. Yes, it could do more. They actually don't want corruption themselves. But they, just like all of us. And the problem we have now is issues to do with, I think, why I'm appealing for more such engagements like this. It's ideological education, consciousness building. To know that at the end of the day, CCC, if we are to be crude, it is just an electionary platform of, politicians, But the raw and brutal fighting day-to-day issues belongs to citizens, belongs to labor movements, belongs to civic organizations, belongs to citizen champions, belongs to you and me, belongs to all of us. And for us, it's actually abnormal. I always say that it's abnormal for a political party to be trending for all 5 years, even including non-election years. I think CCC has done enough. Because usually political parties, they trend during election periods. But CCC has been trending since 2018 to its to formation, 2 years ago and last year and everything. It shows something, but then also we have to do something in terms of action, activism, fighting, getting in the streets and everything. And we can't outsource our duties. We can't outsource our revolutionary mandate to CCC and everything. So I know I've said a lot, but I also feel I've said nothing because I really think we need more discussion around this. But I thank you for this discussion. I think we should share some more.
We can never have enough time because this topic it pains us all. Advocate Masie, can you make your final remarks? And can you make them brief, please?
Yeah, sure. I'll be very brief. Yes, just to answer Chief's question. Yes, it's not surprising that no one has been arrested. It's not surprising at all. That's how our legal system in Zimbabwe works. It protects those people who basically are at the helm of, conducting these criminal activities. But one thing that I probably advise is that in as much as we know that no arrests will be done, I think at this point in time, it's very important to create history and also to create what can I say, more of a reference point. To use those institutions, even though they are deemed corrupt, because when the country now is in a place where we need to fix things, we would know where to reference to. And there is an anti-corruption commission, as highlighted, PANAPA, which should be involved in these things. And I would also urge probably us as citizens to test that commission by submitting our petitions there and requesting them to, demanding actually them to investigate this event and initiate arrests if so needed. And we know probably nothing will happen, but when time comes when we are narrating history, we will say that on this day we submitted this petition to you and you did nothing, and so forth. But lastly, I would also want to say that at this point in time in our struggle in Zimbabwe, we might be legal minds or using the law. What does the law say, and so forth. To me, I think we're at a point in time where we need to take the powers and use whatever means, advocacy or otherwise, to fight this system. Mutemo, of course, is there. I think it should just be used as a plus, but the citizens' action has to be at the forefront. Because at this point in time, we might be talking, we might talk, we might argue, we might debate and so forth. But at the end of the day, what are the citizens going to do? At the end of the day, how is the government going to feel the heat of the citizens? We know that they've captured the courts. We know that they've captured some of our colleagues, but the citizens still have the power. Let's make sure that we find ways to force this government to act. They cannot kill us all. I'll conclude.
Thank you, Advocate Masie. We've heard a lot. We've learned a lot today. We know we've been watching the Gold Mafia series from Al Jazeera, but from the presentations that we've had, we now know that that's not the only thing that is being looted. Basically, almost all our mineral resources are being looted. Chrome, platinum, a whole lot of our minerals are being looted. The future of Zimbabwe is being looted. The future of our youth is being looted. So there's a lot we need to do. We have been challenged. Let's make history. And I was looking at the charts there. There are people who've been asking, what can we do? In Canada, they have plans that are already at an advanced stage. They are going to demonstrate in I think Toronto, as has been said. In the US, we have plans that are in the works. We are going to go and demonstrate about all this in at the embassy in DC. These are some of the plans that are there. But from what our panelists have said, let's make history, time to act. Let's encourage all our relatives at home to vote. Those of us who can go home to vote, let's go and vote. Let's make sure that we have large numbers voting, because that's one easy way of getting rid of the regime and getting rid of all these shenanigans. So at this point, I would like to call upon Mr. Bako, if you are in to give us a vote of thanks. Mr.
Yeah, you
Bako.
said Mr. Mugomeza would do it.
Oh, Mr. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Mgomeza.
Sorry, Doc, can you hear me?
I've got Wabago on speaker. I can put him on speaker.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Doc. And thank you for this wonderful platform this afternoon. I think, like what we have heard from our panelists today, all it is now, guys, it's up to us. But first and foremost, let me thank our panelists for this afternoon. Advocate Masia, Marco, very energizing as always. And the lady speaker, I think I didn't get her name because I was coming in and out. Thank you so much for presenting us with all this information, which is, I think, is going to energize us. And you have answered a lot of the questions that we had in our minds. And we really, really appreciate you for that. But as for us all here, guys, there you are. You've heard it all. It's now entirely up to us. And we have to play our part, like how Marco explained, guys. We want to play let's play our part. And as the diaspora, people back home, they look up to us more than we even can imagine. So let's start it here. Let's do whatever we can do. If we do for doing any litigation, whatever we can do to make sure our voices are heard and we are seen to be taking action. So as for, like the doctor said, in Canada, we're planning a demonstration, and our demonstration, we want to take it to the Zoom embassy in Ottawa, which is the capital. So we are arranging that we go there and stage a demo, and we're trying to do it coordinated with all the external assemblies. So our targeted dates are going to be, I think, right now it's provisional is the 21st, or we might do it on Independence Day on the 18th. So we're still working, it's still work in progress. But otherwise, thank you so much for this platform, and we've learned a lot today. And I think as citizens and in the diaspora, we can only be more energized because words here. Doc, I think at this point I give it back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you for that. This concludes our program for today. And as you may all have seen, a lot of you still had a lot of questions, and we just ran out of time. We had planned for 2 hours, and right now we're on 2 hours, 15 minutes. We went over by 15 minutes. We're surely going to plan another event like this, and I want to appreciate you all for coming.
If you can give me opportunity, Doc, right before we finish?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We just want to make sure that the message about the demo is not lost. We are definitely planning to have the demo in Washington, D.C., to go to the Zimbabwean embassy to express our frustration over over the abuse of power, the abuse of our resources. So things are in the works. Our organizing department is working on it. The tentative date is April 21, which is a Friday. Why it's a Friday is because tudakuenda kwakavhurwa kuti tinyatsokuendesa petition yedu ichibatwa mumaoko. So it's going to be a sacrifice for all of us, ladies and gentlemen, but a worthy sacrifice. This freedom, this democracy that we want is going to take a little bit of sacrifice from all of us. So those of you who can plan, just provisionally begin to plan for April 21 demonstration here in the United States, Washington, D.C. Same thing with Canada, as Mr. Bako said, it's the same thing. It's our organizing department that's organizing with other citizens. One of the important things is that this is not a CCC program. CCC, we are working with all other organizations, churches, citizens, everybody who feels that they want to express themselves over this issue. We are working with everyone. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Back to you, Dr. Mwirimi, to round off.
Thank you. I think you've already said it. Thank you, everyone. And this concludes our program for today. See you on the next event. We will have another one. Thank you.
Thank you.